Hey guys, Jim here. Something quite a bit different for this video here today. This is not about introducing you to a new knife maker that's up and coming, that's doing amazing things. This is not about an established high-end knife maker that you need to find a way to get one of their knives. This, unbelievably, is about the very first knife that I've had a chance to make myself from beginning to end to completion. And I'm still completely amazed that I was given this opportunity to begin with. Before we get into the knife and we get into the practice blade that began everything, I'll just tell you a quick story. Now that I live here in Dallas, Texas, I've been able to be closer to some of the friends that I have here, like Daryl Ralph and some other knife makers. And very shortly after moving here last year, I had the chance to meet Jerry Moen, and we became pretty much instant friends. And you guys might recall, I have done videos on his Blue Max. I'm not sure if I actually did a video on the Blue Max too, but that is the matching little mini to that. And then, of course, the Panther. And if you follow my Instagram account at all, which I certainly hope that you do, you guys have had a chance to see a couple of the fixed blades that he's made for me that I carry, which is the Stealth fixed blade, which is really, really an awesome large size EDC. And my absolute favorite knife, period, that he has made for me is this ivory handled Gambler. I have a standard Gambler that has no scales on it, you know, that has the spade, the club, the diamond, and the heart just cut out of the blade tang. This one's beautifully mirror polished with satin flats and genuine ivory scales. I mean, it really is a magnificent piece, and it's a great size for me to carry very, very easily in a small leather sheath that I had made for it. So I've had a chance to spend some time at Jerry's shop and pick up on a few things here and there, and he's been telling me pretty much since the day I met him, if you ever want to learn how to make knives, I'm here for you. I love to teach people. I'd love to do it. Jerry's obviously a director of the Knife Makers Guild, has plenty of experience and neat little tips and tricks up his sleeve. And I said, well, you know what, if I ever have the balls to try to do it, you're definitely the guy that I'm going to go to. And it just so happens that he's really, really, really close by to where I live. So it's, you know, this is a truly serendipitous thing here. So, decided to go by his shop today and start doing this shit and see if there's something at all in these hands that have any degree of talent whatsoever. Because I don't really work with my hands. Matter of fact, today was the very first time I flipped a switch and turned a grinder on or turned a bandsaw on. I've just never had a need or reason to build anything in my life. So let's start here from the very beginning. This was the very first test blade as we were just getting me familiarized with the grinder, and everything was going great, especially on this side. I brought that grind line up exactly where it needed to be at the time, because you can see it right there. Everything was going nicely. I was able to even out a lot of the stuff that was going on in there. And then I switched hands. And when I got to this side, for some reason, my left hand does not want to cooperate as well as my right hand, and things just went to shit. I started getting a very curvy line in here, and then obviously I brought the primary bevel up far too high, and then ended up chipping the tip off, reprofiled this to get a tip back, and left that intact, thank God. And because I had taken off so much material on this side, that once I brought this side in to even be somewhat in the ballpark of being in the middle, it started getting far too thin and started losing some steel. But that's, you know, that's one of those things, it's to be expected. The only time I've ever touched a grinder was about 4 years ago now, when I visited Jeff Tough Knives up at his shop in Pennsylvania. And it was him, and John Gray was there, and I think Sebastian was there for most of that night. Vance was there, and having all kinds of fun. And John Gray pulls out a piece of steel and says, you know, let's try this. And literally all I did was I just pushed onto one side, got about halfway up to where it needed to be on one side, and that was it. And then John actually ended up finishing that knife. I own that knife. I have that knife. It's very, very cool. So that was my limited experience with the actual hands-on making process. I've been in plenty of shops and seen people do the work and studied and watched what they did and really enjoyed it. And I've also listened to a lot of people critiquing knives, even beyond what I've critiqued in my videos. And one of the things that I see the nitpickers really going nuts about are a maker's plunge lines. So that was in the back of my mind as I pressed steel against the belt every time. And I went, you know what? I really need to make that as nice as it can possibly be. So I took my time with that. And of course, it's still not perfect. It's nowhere near perfect. However, for the very first time making a knife, I think it looks fantastic. You could definitely see, and this is the time for me to critique myself, you can definitely see my variance from left hand to right hand. So obviously, as you could tell, this was certainly not done by a machine or anything high tech. This is just my hands and a grinder, and that's it. And that's a hell of a lot of fun. And one of the interesting things that I learned is, number one, speed is not necessarily going to be your friend when making a knife. Sometimes slow and steady wins the race. The other thing is, it's not about pushing as hard as you can and just, putting a lot of muscle into it. As a matter of fact, when we decided to go ahead and do a model here with the top swedge, this was all about being very gentle and very slow and very precise and using a little bit of finesse instead of any kind of, brute force. And this side, fantastic, super easy. This side, I did have to go back and touch up to get it to the level that it's at, and I'm very, 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 very happy. It's not a very dramatic swedge. However, it was done just to give it a little bit of a character line. Now, the next time I go about doing this, I do want to lower the primary so I have a flat that I can make a bit pronounced, run a swedge in between the flat and the primary bevel, and really give the knife some character like what Jerry does here. And this obviously has even more character because this has been bead blasted and then the satin finish on the flats, and it really makes it pop. Here everything is just done with the belt finish. Didn't do anything fancy after that because I really wanted to study and take a good look, especially honestly making this video and seeing it in HD. You're going to see a lot more imperfections watching this video than I can see with my naked eye, especially my 42-year-old naked eye that's become presbyopic, and I still haven't, I won't wear bifocals because it's just a vanity thing, I think. But that's one other thing that I learned today when I was doing this, and I lost my scribe mark on the edge of the blade and went too far over, that you know what, fuck vanity. I'm going to have to wear a pair of readers when I'm grinding just to make sure that I can see things crisply and clearly and not overshoot the goals that I have. So when you really look at this, the grinds are clean, they're consistent. I'm very, 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 very happy with this. Yes, it's not a perfect knife, and I'm never going to claim that it is. But it's something that I should have actually gone over this. One final light pass would have taken that little bit out right there. But it's something that I was extremely proud of, and I wasn't expecting to do this today. And I certainly was not expecting to go anything beyond grinding the steel. Instead, I got caught up in the moment, and Jerry was enjoying himself, so he said, you know what, we're just going to make a complete knife. So the choice for me was to go with carbon fiber or wood scales. I'm just not a wood scale kind of guy, so I chose carbon fiber. And I love the carbon fiber that Jerry has. It once you've properly buffed it and cleaned it up, it's got this wonderful sheen to it, but still being a matte finish without having to go to a high polish to bring out that sheen. Looks fantastic. So obviously, I cut the carbon fiber on the bandsaw, went over, and if you look on my Instagram or on my Facebook, you'll see the progression pictures that I took in between. So basically, we had the pre-drilled holes in the tang, lined up the carbon fiber as close as possible, basically lining up this area here to where it needed to be in relation to the plunge line. Put it on there, epoxied it, got it clamped down, let it dry. It only took about 5-10 minutes for it to dry. Drilled the holes through from the 8 holes that were in the tang, through the carbon fiber, tapped in all of the pins, went over here to the other side, clamped before I did that, clamped everything down on the other side, let that set, drilled everything through from this side, and then put the pins all the way through. Once that was done, cut the pins, and then just start grinding all this down and letting everything get nice and flat. And you know, that's one of the things that I'm really big on when I'm looking at someone else's work, is that smooth integration of the materials, not missing anything. And I realized just how tricky that can be after just a couple of times of hitting it, because it's not really anything difficult. I was like, oh, that's perfect. It's all nice and smooth. And I moved on to the other side. And it was when I went back, I found one of these pins back here. I went, oh, there's just a tiny little tick sticking up right there. That could have very easily just been overlooked. So I went back, perfected that. One of the other big things was I wanted to have a nicely contoured handle because I wanted it to fit comfortably in the hand. We went for a very slimline construction here, so it's going to be really easy to carry. But I didn't want it to be blocky and square. I didn't want to have any edges. So if you take a good look, I'll give you a close-up here. You can see that everything is nicely contoured. And I still have a bit of, from having the epoxy still tacky on me when I was grinding down the carbon fiber dust got on the epoxy and dried up. And I have a couple of spots of super glue on me from when we were gluing the pins in to hold them in place. So forgive my poorly manicured hands. But you'll see that everything is nicely radiused all the way around. And that was something that was really important to me because I wanted to be comfortable as well as look good. So all the materials are mated together wonderfully. This was a particularly tricky area because I did not contour the scales here before the knife was assembled. So the trick to it was going back and doing that without ruining the blade, because even putting the tape over the blade and even just using the hand sandpaper that I was, it would still have been very easy to scratch up the finish on that blade. Luckily, everything turned out really well. Yes, there are absolutely imperfections here, but you know what? I'm totally okay with that. I'm a perfectionist, but I know that I will never be perfect. But I'll always strive for that. And being the first knife that I've ever sat down and made, I'm totally fine with that. Because what happens is, and the few little hiccups that I had during making this, it taught me, and Jerry taught me how to work around those things and to fix it, correct those problems. And now as I look at this and as I critique the work, I look at it and go, yeah, there are absolutely some issues here. And that's one of the first things that's going to be in my mind when I sit down and make my next knife, to not make the same mistakes twice. I have been presented with knives from makers that have been making for 2, 3, 4, even 5 years. So, I'll be honest, even a couple even longer, that did not present as well on the belt finish of the blade. And that's shocking to me. It really is. Now, that's not to say that I'm any better than anybody else. I'm absolutely not. And I just hope that in the future I don't ever overlook things like that because maybe I'm focused on, special care of certain materials, or doing a bolster, or doing this, or adding the jimping and doing this finish and that finish, that I overlook what I see now are the basics. And this also gives me greater insight as I'm doing reviews for the future and as I'm critiquing things. I don't really have any super thin paper here. Hold on one second. Let's see. Best I can really do for you is copier paper. But you see that it wasn't about just making something that looks cool. I really was able to put a decent edge on. And that makes me feel great to know that I have something usable. That it's not just, oh, well, you know, Jim made a knife. Put that in a box. See what happens. It's something I can actually use. It's funny, when I brought it home, my wife goes, oh, great, I have a new paring knife. I'm like, yeah, I guess. I kind of like to put it with my other knife, since it's the first knife I've ever made. Maybe I'll work on something else for you in the future. But it's clear to me now, as I'm holding this, that the knife is obviously broken. It's obviously defective, because no matter what I do, it won't fold. So I don't know how it's going to work out in my collection. Yes, I know. It's going to be a long time before I ever get a chance to take that very, very huge jump into making a folder. I'm probably 2 years away from being able to do that, and honestly, I'm scared. There's a lot of thought that has to go into that, a lot more processes, and for fuck's sake, math. My 8th grade math teacher would be so disappointed in me to know that that's the reason that I would be nervous about making a knife. But yeah, there's a lot of math, and knowing all the measurements and where you need to put the pivot and where everything's going to fall when it closes up, and the thickness and the counter boring and sinking in for the bearings, and there's a shitload that you have to really consider, and a lot of things that I don't even know yet that I have to consider. So I think the next challenge is going to be making pretty much the exact same knife again. However, instead of using pins, probably just use fasteners. I love how Jerry has chosen to use pivots for his hardware there. Something that's a little bit cleaner. I want to experience doing that. I do want to do a little bit more of a complex grind, and I want to take care of the little areas of opportunity that I have on this blade. And I'll be taking this knife with me so that I don't forget those little things and big things that need to be changed for the future. So, will Jimbo become a knife maker? Who the fuck knows? At this point, I look at it and go, it's something that it's fun to learn something new. When you get to a certain point in your life or in your career and you've reached a certain goal, you've gotten to be, however good you are at your job, it's fun to find something that you can start at the bottom again and then you can learn. And that if you're open-minded and you're willing to accept the criticism, to sit down and learn a new craft, man, it's really fucking cool. It really is. And it's something that you can take pride in because your own two hands made this. Most of the work that I've done throughout my life, it's the creativity, something that comes out of my mind and then maybe somebody else makes. And here I get a chance to kind of do that myself. And you know what? There's going to be a lot of pitfalls. I'm going to screw up a lot, and I'm going to be throwing bar stock across the fucking shop, I'm sure, at some point in fits of rage. But for every time you fail, you get the opportunity to then succeed once again. And it's not about how many times you fall, it's about how many times you get back up. So for me, I look forward to that challenge and enjoying that. And I tell you right now, I don't want to be home right now. I don't want to be sitting here behind this camera. I want to go back and grind another blade. I want to go back and profile another handle. It's an addictive feeling. It's a really cool thing. And once that initial tension wears off. I wasn't really nervous, but there's that tension of, you don't want to screw up. You don't want to screw up. Even though that's perfectly okay. It's perfectly acceptable. But you don't want to. It's a pride thing. It's a guy thing. You don't want to screw up. And I'm happy to say that I ended the day with a functioning knife. That's pretty damn cool. So for me, it's going to be doing something just slightly more complex and perfecting the areas that I feel are not perfect here, or not even close to perfect here. And once I've done that, and I've repeated that, and I've been able to be successful at doing good things consistently, then move up to something that may be a little bit more challenging. And then maybe in a year or two, I could try making my first folder and see how that works out. So, being a knife maker, I don't know. But at least a hobbyist knife maker, I'd enjoy that. And maybe someday I'll make something that's nice enough that somebody would want to actually own in their collection. you know what? Maybe I can make a few knives and sell a few knives. But until then, I'm just happy having something new that I get a chance to learn and be challenged by. So, Jerry, you know what? I truly, honestly, I can't thank you enough for the opportunity. It's a bigger deal to me, I think, than it may be to some people, because I truly love knives. I'm sure most of you have pretty much gathered that by now, but it's more than just liking them as an object or liking them as a tool. There's something about why I collect so many different kinds of knives, because they each have their own soul and their own personality, and there's something special about that being made by someone. And to get a chance to be able to do that myself, I think it's pretty damn cool. So thank you guys, those of you that stuck around all 20 minutes to watch this silly video. You know, hopefully 5 years from now I can look back at this video and laugh. Either I've hit the lotto and said, I'm never making a knife again. Let's hope that happens. I'm going for option A on that. Or option B, that maybe I have buckled down and I've started making knives, and maybe, you know, somehow I'm actually good at it. And I can look back at this and go, oh man, now what a piece of crap that was. I can't even believe I showed that to the public. But for right now, I can feel proud of the accomplishment, and that's all that really matters. So thank you guys for watching. I'm going to get out of here, and I promise you the next video that you're going to see is about a knife made by a real professional.